What if Tank Davis, who can punch, who is a hell of a fighter, who is a top 10 pound-for-pound fighter, what if he lands a punch on this bigger guy's chin, right, who's not a professional fighter? What happens?
But if they do it for real, Tank is highly capable of taking Jake Paul out. So the exhibitions that I like to see are ones that either I can mythically look at and say, wow, well, if he would have did that back when he was 10 years younger or 8 years or 12 years ago, he would have beat him. You understand me? Because we know boxing.
Which if he hits you because he's so accurate, he's gonna drop you or could put you to sleep. But like not necessarily power punch. Like Edwin De Los Santos is a hard hitter. He would even have a hard time with rollies. I'm not even kidding.
The buzz surrounding a potential matchup between Gervonta Tank Davis and Jake Paul has exploded into one of boxing's most polarizing debates. What began as internet chatter has now become a genuine point of discussion among promoters and analysts, dividing the sport between purists and promoters chasing spectacle. At a recent media event in Miami, Jake Paul declared that Tank is too small to survive even 3 rounds, while Davis, expressionless, replied, "Size doesn't mean skill." The tension was unmistakable.
Went about the presser.
He reminded me of a northern football fan being dragged to a shopping centre on a Saturday afternoon rather than being allowed to go to his favourite Liverpool seat. You'll relate to that, won't you?
Yeah.
It was almost like he'd been shackled and dragged there against his will. Even when they faced off, it was as if Jake Paul had a bad smell about him or something. He didn't want to get near Jake Paul. He didn't want to. I'm just going to plug this in as well. I just realised it's not plugged in. It was almost as if he didn't want to indulge anyone at all. Like he'd signed up against his will, and then like he'd been signed up against his will. The agents and his manager and his handler had dragged him there without briefing him on what was going on and where it would be and what time it would take place. And there was this oaf in his mind standing there in front of him, this big oaf who kept posturing, and it just didn't do anything to him. I wondered at one point whether he was going to burst out with a combination of punches or something and just drop Jake Paul, who was being, measuring him up and going down to his height, and it was all very peculiar in my view. Like he really wasn't taking.
Observers noted that Tank appeared bulkier than usual, his frame noticeably thicker, hinting that he's already begun preparing for the 190-pound catchweight. Still, even with added muscle, the size difference was stark. Analyst Andre Ward weighed in, calling the potential fight a circus with danger. Ward warned that Paul's 60-pound advantage could turn the event into something closer to a spectacle than a sport. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan, who recently interviewed both men separately, praised Tank's confidence but admitted that Jake's conditioning and improved fundamentals make him more dangerous than people think.
Mainly Jake's, and we're not falling for the Disney Channel bit no more. We're not falling for you're not a fighter no more. We're not falling for that. You're ranked as a cruiserweight and you're out here trying to fight a lightweight. And then on top of it, you were just talking about fighting Anthony Joshua. That doesn't make no sense. And, I just felt like it was a disgrace to boxing and kind of it was not a good move by Jake Paul. I understand people saying, Gervonta got to go get his money, blah, blah, blah. But, we're not talking about that shit. We're talking about the sport, bro. We're not talking about, you got to get that money, bro. Yeah, but everybody's open to criticism. That's the whole point of this media shit. Right. That's why they talk about basketball players. They don't talk about, LeBron's making too much. Nobody cares, bro. If LeBron's missing the shot, he's missing the fucking shot. So at the end of the day, bro, I just thought it was a disgrace to the sport. Because on one end, you got the casuals, right? The casuals don't see the weight difference. They see Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. Yeah. And if Gervonta Davis doesn't fuck up Jake Paul, they're going to think Jake Paul is some pound-for-pound champion type of fighter. Yeah. And to me, that's just it's tricking the public, and it's kind of bullshit, bro, at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, if Gervonta was Jake Paul's size, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. There probably wouldn't even be a fight. Yeah, you know what I mean? So I just think that it's a disgrace to boxing.
Well, we got to play devil's advocate because people were saying, well, Ryan, you called out Jake Paul before too, so how would you say that? What do you have to say to the people that were saying that to you?
Well, I'm way bigger than Gervonta Davis. Gervonta Davis is 5'4", and his last fight was at 133. My last fight was 147, and I walk around 170. So, I mean, 170 to 190, whatever, however big is not too much difference. But you got Gervonta Davis, he's actually really small. Like, when I fought him, like, he's small.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a very unfair fight. Nobody was complaining when Jake Paul was fighting Julio Cesar Chavez.
Right.
Nobody was complaining when he was fighting Anthony Joshua. And I still think Jake Paul's a cool dude. But shit, he's called me out on my shit. I'm gonna call him out on his shit, bro. That's a fucking disgrace of a fight.
Yeah.
You know it. Just like the Mike Tyson, low key was a disgrace, but we accepted it. But
Yeah.
he was 60 years old. I mean,
Right.
what the f are we talking
he's
about
60.
here?
Jake's not a joke anymore, Rogan said. But Tank's still a real killer. Insiders close to the negotiations revealed new details about the rules being considered. The fight would likely be a 10-round exhibition at a 190-pound limit, using 10-ounce gloves, a slight compromise between Tank's lightweight standards and Paul's cruiserweight habits. A no-knockdown bonus clause is rumored to be part of the deal, encouraging action while maintaining safety for the smaller man.
How are you doing that? How do you sort of see this scenario now for him?
Yeah, I don't really know how to feel about it, what to really say about it. I've only been asked this when it's presented to me. That's when I think about it, and I can't really come up with a good answer for it. In a lot of ways, it doesn't make sense to me. Of course, we know the size differential, and the list goes on from there. I don't know, man. I think we're entering a generation now, or a phase now where fighters, I don't know if it's fighters. I don't know if he doesn't care about the legacy, or if he feels like this fight doesn't matter. I'll get back to the legacy. I just don't know. This is truly not. It's not a legacy fight, but of course it is a generational money fight.
Has evolved to where it's at. I'll expand on that. For one, you have good fights where I'm not talking about these type of fights, crossover type of fight, former Disney guy, influencer stuff. Not. And Jake Paul has really promoted himself and acquitted himself to the point where he's kind of a boxer. Now, he hasn't fought the top names. I get it, blah, blah, blah. But he's doing his thing. He's training like a boxer. He's not like taking it lightly, like streaming and then working on his YouTube more than he's working on his boxing. It is what it is, right? But beyond that, let's keep it going. I told you I'm about to really get unpacked. Subscribe to the channel. The reality is, the reason why I'm saying I blame you, the fans, is because we've had some very good fights, like David Benavidez, Caleb Plant, whatever. I'm talking in the last 5-10 years, right? Very good fights, all boxing. So not talking influencer or any type of crossover fight, right? Good fights. And then you got boxing fans in a niche sport who didn't further the exposure by advertising or buying the fight, mostly buying the fight with piracy and whatnot. So now we're at a point in this society where these companies, they're like, all right, they see the piracy is a problem. Now they're looking for sure shot, must win type of scenarios. That's why we're getting these fights that some people, purists and diehards, are calling wonky fights. You know what I mean? It is your fault.
Promoter Eddie Hearn confirmed discussions are very real, hinting that a major streaming platform has already shown interest in financing the bout. The numbers are insane, he said. This would break pay-per-view records, love it or hate it. But not everyone's impressed. Shakur Stevenson took to social media to blast Tank for selling out for spectacle, saying, "You're supposed to be chasing belts, not clowns." Tank responded sharply, "I've already fed my legacy. Now I'm feeding my family."
And start to break down a Tank Davis versus Jake Paul fight. Tank, a massively powerful fighter at 135 pounds, but his punch output is among the lowest in the sport. Jake has a pretty decent punch output for a guy that's 200 pounds. He hits hard in his own right, but doesn't have the skill and capabilities anywhere close, or the feet, or the hand speed, or the eyes, anywhere close to Tank Davis. But has a power that Tank Davis has probably never felt, but just because Jake is naturally 70 pounds bigger than him, right? So 10 rounds, 3 minutes, who starts to show the wear and tear first? I know if Tank touches him on the jaw, it's probably not going to feel like roses, regardless if he's 135 or 150 or whatever he steps in that night. He's still a Tank and has still put guys down as he's gone up in weight, but Jake is just so much bigger. How much will the power that Tank has at the lower weight
than Tank? I don't even know how you cannot have him better than Tank. People question Tank's resume anyway. But if you make Tank take a knee and they don't call it a knockdown and you still get the draw, you beat him. You beat Tank. And then you dominate Pitbull, one of Tank's best wins. Bro, you better than him. The resume, listen, bro. I didn't say greater. I said better. The resume means politics. Ryan was just saying it. Lamont Roach could have been on a back burner and they were holding him back, so he had to go down to 130, doing the grunt work like Marvelous Marvin Hagler, waiting for his time to shine. Resume, if the business chooses you, they can move you along right. He actually get cherry-picked and he best Tank, and then he stops Pitbull. He's better. Y'all know how the business of boxing works. You just saw Terrence Crawford actually be the best fighter we've seen in decades. The man, Terrence Crawford, can arguably be better than Floyd Mayweather. Y'all saw the business shit him for all of his career, practically all of his career. And you see that he's better than Nello? What a surprise. We've been sitting, a guy coming from lightweight can beat Nello at super.
Teddy Atlas joined the debate, describing the fight as David versus Goliath, but with Goliath being the YouTuber. He argued that while Tank's skills are light years ahead, physics always gets a vote. Bernard Hopkins went further, warning that such mismatches risk damaging boxing's credibility if sanctioned under traditional rules. Despite the criticism, the public interest is undeniable. Ticket inquiries have already flooded major venues, with Las Vegas, Miami, and Dubai emerging as possible hosts. Sources suggest both fighters could clear over $40 million each, with additional revenue from sponsorships and streaming partnerships.
Even if this whole Jake situation was in the way, holler at me. Tell me you want to fight Jake. Tell me you got a bag coming up. All right, boom. Like,
go do
it's a way to handle that. We have a contract. You cannot breach a contract and think shit just gonna be sweet. You can't. You can't do that. Right. We have a contract. So it's not like this wasn't supposed to happen or whatever the case may be, and he just went and took the Jake route. We had a signed contract to fight. So him breaching the contract is, if y'all put yourself in my shoes, you gotta think, I'm looking forward to fighting and getting paid. I'm looking forward to fighting and winning so I could be two-time world champ. Me. I'm in training for a fight to be a champion in another weight class and for me to be crowned champion twice in my career. And this just goes and then end up announcing another fight. Put yourself in my shoes.
Did you find out just like the rest of us did?
Kinda. So I was on the fence because they didn't announce. They was like, all right, we're going to announce. All right, we're going to announce. All right, they're going to announce. Every week. All right, we're going to announce the fight. We're going to announce the fight. I'm like, all right.
Ultimately, he cannot get knockouts. I agree. He can punch, but there's a lot of limited knockout artists, though, man.
He's one of the least active punchers in the game with the highest knockout percentage of current heavyweight.
But if he was a real knockout artist, if he was a real knockout artist, prop him up against the best of the best. Felix Trinidad was a knockout artist. He was knocking out the best of the best. If you're a real knockout artist, prop him up against the best and show us how he smokes them. But the way
Paulie,
we did
also,
when Felix Trinidad was doing it. You know, the way
well,
they
Felix
did it when
Trinidad
Mike
was
Tyson was doing it in his prime. Okay, say what you want about the Mike Tyson era.
now,
He knocked out everyone from 1986 to 1989. Everyone got knocked out. Everyone.
Well, by your standard, you could say that Tyson was to a degree manufactured.
No,
and
because
Teddy
he
Atlas
fought
100%,
everyone that was there. Everyone that was there
Teddy
at that time
Atlas,
fought.
Teddy Atlas will 100% agree with this
with the
because
expense
he
of
would say the guys
Witherspoon.
that were afraid of
with
him.
the exception of Witherspoon. No, but they all doesn't matter. He knocked them all out. There was nobody you could say in that era except maybe Witherspoon, who had contract.
You can say the same thing about
who had contract issues with King at the time. Oh, except for Witherspoon, there is nobody Tyson didn't fight in that era. He knocked them.
I ain't even gonna call it a fight because it ain't. If Jake Paul's involved in it, it's a great acting job. You know, Mike Tyson could have just knocked Jake Paul's face into the canvas, but he got paid to pull punches. Otherwise, he wouldn't have got paid. I'm pretty sure the same is going for Gervonta Davis. It's a quick money grab. Yeah, most of y'all gonna be suckers who tune in. It's just quick money grab. That's all I'm saying. Ain't gonna be no fight. I don't give a fuck how big Jake Paul is. He can't take one of them little mother tank punches. Yeah, tank move furniture. Move furniture. Catch that motherfucking move furniture. And Jake don't like his furniture move, so he gonna pay him not to hit him again. If you really want to show out Gervonta, sign a contract that you ain't gonna hit him, because if you hit him, you lose all the money. And then whoop that motherfucker's ass, put him to sleep, and get him out the boxing game once and for all.
Fans remain split, half calling it a disgrace, half calling it genius. Yet everyone agrees on one thing: if the fight happens, it will be the biggest event of the year. Whether it's a money grab or a masterstroke, Davis versus Paul represents boxing's modern identity crisis in full view, a sport torn between legacy and entertainment. And in that tension lies its strange new appeal.